In round 7, Saracens mount a superb second half comeback to break Quins' hearts. Leicester make it a perfect 7 from 7. And Worcester Warriors bounce back by bashing Sale. All this and more in this week's episode of Gallagher Premiership Rugby's The Lowdown. Roll VT. Hello and welcome back to The Lowdown with me, David Flatman, talking you through all the best bits of this weekend's Gallagher Premiership action. So it wasn't just the Gallagher Premiership that was taking place this weekend. The Autumn Nation Series games began, which means that lots of Gallagher Premiership players have gone into international camps, seeing their old mates again, and it looks like Joe Marler was very pleased indeed to see Kyle Sinclair. Not sure that feeling was reciprocated. I like that from Joe. It's one of those gags that it's like jumping out on someone. It just doesn't get old. If you can find it, have a look for the Richard Hibbard one, jumping out on James Hook, where he actually swings a punch at him. Doesn't connect, so it's okay for kids to watch. It's a golden gag that will never get old. It's timeless. And also the England boys have been hitting the waves over in Jersey. Some great rigs on display as well. And finally, during the week, I'm told by some very cool people, cooler people than me, that there was a Marvel premiere going on. Some of the Quins players went, some of the Sarries players went. It's not a thing I'm into, it's a thing they're into, and I'm very pleased for them. But it got me thinking, which Gallagher Premiership players do you think would make the best superheroes? Let us know in the comments what you think. But the first guy that springs to mind for me is Albert Tuasui, because he could be the Hulk, right? Because he wears green, because he's a massive unit, and you basically wouldn't and don't want to make him angry. Yeah, let us know what you reckon. Okay, let's get down to business. Quins Sarries, there's always a bit of niggle, and this weekend proved no different, actually. Quins started the game really, really well, and guess who? Andre Esterhuizen bouncing off Billy Vunipola. You don't see that very often. So much power, such an important player. What you also don't see very often is Nick Tompkins getting dragged about. Hugh Tizard, young player but big fella, mega leg drive, mega muscle, lots and lots of power. Andre Esterhuizen didn't play the whole game. They took him off. You know, it's a long old season and all that. And we'll see what happens in the end. I'm not saying Quins didn't win because they took Esterhuizen off, but they are definitely a better team with him on the field. I still think you could swap that guy for Damien Diolandi in the Springbok 15 and they wouldn't miss anything. I think he's that good. How about this pass from Tommy Allen? Marcus Smith does that. We're all going mad, so let's all go mad. Tommy Lauday did a brilliant job, and I thought Caden Murley had actually fluffed his lines there by not giving it inside on the 2-on-1 to Tyrone Green, but he gets rid of Alex Good without any real problems in the end. And Sarries really, that second half, they really started to exert some control, and they kind of got better and better as the half went on. And this is deliberately fast-forwarded, by the way, folks. Deliberately fast-forwarded, just to show you how Saracens are dragging Quins' defence left to right, left to right. It's exhausting. We're 76 minutes in. Lewington, look here, he almost has to slow up a little bit. He almost needs Jackson Ray to get there a bit sooner. So Tyrone Green does a very good job and almost gets to Jackson Ray, but Lewington's so quick in that outside channel that Jackson Ray just gets there in time and gets the job done. And by the way, what a game Jackson Ray had. What an asset he is to that man's team. Right, the socials went mad during and after that game. Rugby Inside Line said this: Tyrone Green is probably our favourite player in the Premiership right now. Deserves international honours with South Africa. I wouldn't disagree with that, but I say you do have to drop somebody to pick him. So who are you going to drop from the South Africa team? Willie LaRue, decent player, particularly in attack. But yes, I would agree with that. Full package, but particularly so elusive. He is elusive, but he's super powerful as well. He's not elusive, and actually once you get hold of him, you can rag him quite easily. He's brutal. He's an absolute handful when you do finally get hold of him. Line Out Nors said this: I can't hide my delight at that result. You don't need to hide it, Norsy. Just let it out, mate. Outstanding grit and determination from the Sarries boys, given the number of players they were missing. Quins better than I thought they'd be, but not good enough today. No, I think Marcus Smith goes and you think they're never going to cope. I mean, Joe Marler is a big loss for Quins, full stop. Marcus Smith goes, you think they won't cope. Tommy Allen was fantastic until he had to go off quite early. Esterhuizen, they had to get him off a bit early, he was strapped up a little bit. I think he's fine. They're just sort of preserving him, but they weren't quite there. I wonder if they'd left Esterhuizen on, if they might have got the result. Don't know, too late now. Anyway, to Franklin's Gardens for the East Midlands derby, and could Northampton Saints do anything to stop the Leicester Tigers' march? No, they couldn't. Fantastic performance from Leicester Tigers. Lots of it was complicated, lots of it was simple. This is pretty simple. Give it to the massive unit. He's a brilliant finisher and quick on the wing. and he's likely to get over, but there was a lot of pressure that built up to that, sucking in Northampton defenders. The Leicester attack looked really, really good. A horrible mistake from Alex Mitchell, who actually I thought had a really good game. Didn't all go his way. He has been called into the England squad, by the way. Wonder what Nandola was doing here. He didn't need to step. He could have just barreled bigger over, because he's the biggest man in the world. But he did step, he fell over, but he got there anyway. Northampton didn't let Leicester Tigers have it all their own way, especially in sort of the third quarter of the game, just after half-time. This was just before. Skosan is some finisher. The footwork, the acceleration, couple of games, loads of tries. I reckon he's going to score a lot more for Northampton Saints. Looks a really good signing. Now you take Nandola off, you bring on Murray Murivalu, and it's basically one powerful unit for another. He chucks one defender into the other. He chucks one defender into the other and knocks the second one over. I mean, it's kind of like a snooker cannon shot. Amazing. And this was horrible for James Grayson, but this was the second gift that JVP was offered and accepted. And in the end, Northampton Saints got tonked. Socials after that game, lots of people talking about George Ford, and if you watch the game, you'll know why. Ash Cunningham says this: I am once again asking you to recognise George Ford as the once in a generation 10 that he is. Yeah, it's a really good point, that. George Ford's got a ton of caps, been really, really successful, very, very highly rated player by pretty much everybody, yet I still quite often think he's underrated. Only my opinion. I don't pick the England squad. He'd be on my England squad 11 times out of 10. And he was wonderful. Rugby for All said this on Twitter: the Leicester-Northampton game was brutal. Have to say, George Ford not being picked for England is going to have the same effect that Marler choosing not to play for England last season had for Harlequins. So important for them. That is a really, really good point. George Ford now would be away for about a month, and he might come back knackered. He might come back having to be re-blended back into the team. He might come back a bit tired. He is there for Leicester Tigers. He is probably their most important player. He's their best player. Nandolo's close, but you've got to use him, right? And George Ford is the guy that pulls the string and does the using. And he is in exceptional form. Such exceptional form. We got a couple of little clips of some stuff that George Ford did that we thought you might enjoy. The first bit of this clip I love, because George Ford takes this like there's no one there. It's like he's playing on his own. And then this is the best 50-22 you are going to see. You are not going to see a better one. It's about a 75-22. It's the best one, and he makes it look easy. An incredible kick, really coolly taken, that chip, very, very confident indeed. And how about this for confidence? This is the best drop goal I've seen since Zinzan Brooks. Remember Zinzan Brooks? I think you do. How about that? He is just out there on the big stage doing what he wants. No doubt in the back of his mind, he wonders if Eddie Jones is seeing it. He knows Eddie Jones is seeing that. Hasn't been picked for England. Wow, that's a good player to leave out of an England squad. Right now from Northampton to Brentford, where London Irish played against Bristol Bears, and it was a class game. Bristol started the game with typical sort of Bristol Bears ambition, getting the ball wide, 15 yards from their own line or 10 yards from their own line to Luke Morahan. Back in the side, back fit these days, doing damage. Ended up being, we're not going to be silly and call it try of the season. It's a bit early for that, but that is a wonderful try from Bates. In the end, all he has to do is take the pass and sprint it in, but the support line was good. The offloading was good. Loads of ambition. Morahan holding the ball like a cricket ball. A couple of one-handed scoop offloads. Beautiful stuff. Lovely that. Then the yellow cards started coming. Jake Heenan got himself a yellow card. Charles Pietau got himself a yellow card. And I know the skipper was arguing it there, but there's no argument at all on that. Definite yellow. Andy Ewan, I'm going to be honest with you, as the supposed expert, I don't know what that's for. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I don't know what it's for. Playing the 9 maybe? Let me know in the comments, please. Educate me. London Irish did mount a version of a fight back. They really did. Love watching Tom Parton play. This guy could be part of the conversation for England's fullback. People don't talk about him enough, I don't think. We know about Matt Rogerson, high-class operator, very consistent indeed. And in terms of consistency, well, nobody was more influential in their consistency than Callum Sheedy on the day. Kick after kick after kick meant that Bristol could survive 3 yellow cards at once and going down to 12. Really, really important win for Bristol Bears, you sense, because they haven't had it all their own way, have they? Okay, social media after that Bristol Bears win. I love it, says Sarah B64. Let's hope for more of these. Fab from the boys. Good performance from Piers and Sheedy this afternoon. On the whole, good team result. I'd agree with that. Callum Sheedy, class. Piers O'Connor, class every time he plays. Tom Bradley, obviously a London Irish fan, said, what is going on with this team? Bonus point win away against Exeter last week, crashing back to earth this week. Yeah, Tom, it's difficult as a supporter, I would say. I'm kind of a neutral, so I don't get that kind of emotional high and low thing that you get when you invest solely in one team. But it's a really hard league, mate. It's really, really hard. Sarries have won their last 2 games by 47, 48 points or margin, haven't they? And then they weren't going to get it anywhere near that easy at Quins, with some of Quins' best players missing. So really, really difficult to be consistent in this league. Right, let's go to 6 ways, where Sale Sharks are coming to play Worcester Warriors. Sale trying to find a bit of form, struggling a little bit, but Worcester had no form at all. So we all knew exactly what was going to happen, right? Worcester seemed fizzing, absolutely fizzing from the very first couple of minutes of this game. Jamie Shilcock had a fantastic match, best I've seen him play. And this was lovely timing from Ollie Lawrence, but great to see Duhan van der Merwe sprinting in. He hasn't found any form yet for Worcester. Had a horrible game a couple of weeks back down at Exeter Chiefs, so it's great to see a top player getting a bit of form back. The fans absolutely loving it. They were buzzing just as much as the players were. Very, very pleased with themselves, but a bit of a way to go yet, lads. Rohan Jansen van Rensburg, we know he's a handful, but there are points like this where you think he's breaking way too many tackles. Are Worcester going to switch off? Is their defence up to it? Are they quite right, in the right mental headspace? But they kept coming. They were resilient, they were aggressive with the ball. Jamie Shilcock, well, Sam James, wonderful player, is going to be having nightmares about Jamie Shilcock after that handoff and put down, sending in Van der Merwe. Bushak, have some of that. That was a tackle made. There's no way he's breaking that tackle. I reckon only him and Nandolo break that tackle in the Premiership if the tackle's a good one. Jamie Shilcock was fantastic all day long. Have some of that. That is horrible. He will absolutely hate that Sam James. And later on, Shilcock skinned him on the outside in the 13 channel too. He won't want to think about him for a while. Right, socials after that. Rock and Run 85 says that handoff from Jamie Shilcock that led to the Duhan van der Merwe going through had me absolutely buzzing yesterday. Yeah, it was brutal. And I kind of hate doing it to Sam James because he's one of my favourite players. It got to the point a season or two ago where it felt weird how often I said how good I thought he was, but I still do. He just got a bit off balance. Shilcock was absolutely on one. As I said, best I've seen Shilcock play, and I've seen him play well a good number of times. He looked electric this weekend. Worcester Warriors looked electric themselves. Absolutely thrilled for them to win. I never really mind who wins rugby games. I don't get that worried about who wins or loses and that sort of stuff. I just talk about what I see. But now and again, you want a group of guys to pull together and do a job on a big, powerful team like that, and they did it. So fair dues to him. This is from Martin Whiteley, who's a Sale Sharks supporter, bit less positive. Do we really credit the side, Worcester, who've taken 2 50-point pastings in the past fortnight, or do we accept our own standards have dropped below acceptable levels for several weeks and we've done nothing to resolve it? In what way is our penalty or knock-on count acceptable at Prem level? Yeah, brutal. Again, you can go through bad patches. It's not many seasons ago, 2 seasons ago, isn't it, that Chiefs lost 6 of their first 8 games and ended up winning the Gallagher Premiership. So these things do happen. It does happen, but it's funny, isn't it? Alex Sanderson arrives back end of last season. There's a great buzz. You get to the Prem semi-finals. Everything's going well. It's very easy. It's very easy for things to start going not very well at all. So, you know, my advice, and it's just advice, stand by them, stand firm, keep cheering. That's what will help them. That is what will help them, and help is what they need, and they've got the players to find that form. Now, Alex Sanderson he's not struggling at Sale Sharks, but he knows now as director of rugby that times can very quickly get tough. Another director of rugby that knows all about that is Stuart Hooper at Bath. He went into this weekend with 5 losses from 5 against Wasps. It was going to be tough because Wasps rested almost everyone last week, brought them all back this week, and it was a crunch game at the Rec. Actually a really competitive game down at the Rec until the red card you're going to see in a minute. This was clever from Umanga. Obviously got the call from Bassett. Look how much space there is out there. Bath have narrowed right up. Fifita in the end jogs in effectively, well, all but unopposed. There are a couple of guys there who you could argue should have done better but didn't. Try stands. And in terms of a riposte, how about this? Max Clark, that's a beauty of a ball at the line off the hip to Tom de Glanville, but the line, the pace, the outside swerve, the skid, absolutely wonderful stuff from the young Bath fullback. What an attacking player he is, doing great things. Now Mike Williams here steams into Jimmy Gopperth. Very, very big impact indeed. Noticed it at the time, and Ian Tempest declares it a red card. Let me know what you think about that in the comments, by all means. Remembering to be polite to the referee, of course. But look at the score, 10-13. Bath very much in it with all but half a game to play. It was always going to be tough. Gabriel O'Gray straight to the middle. That's not about numbers, that's a defensive error. He was sharp, O'Gray, on his 50th game for Wasps. He looked really, really good. Again, that wasn't about numbers, that's a defensive error, but a nice line from the Wasp. And Umanga here, well, Fifita again, he was wonderful. He hurt himself and went off too. There's almost no way Wasp can't score there, except they don't score. It ends up not mattering hugely, but I still can't quite work out how they didn't manage it. Now, all seemed lost for Bath, but they still played with some ambition. This from Jonathan Joseph was about as perfect as it gets. Rockandanguni, little fumble, regather, got the time to score it. So Bath kind of finished with a flourish, but the wait for a win goes on. Now, after that game, I was straight on Twitter hoping Jimmy Gopperth, after he seemed to got knocked out by Mike Williams on that clear out that led to the red card, I was waiting for him to tweet to say he was all right. He did. Thanks for all the messages. I'm all good. Very lucky to have a great medical team who looked after me at Wasps Rugby. Good man, Gops. Glad to see you get up from that. It was a big old hit. Stand up Bath, obviously a Bath supporter. From a Wasps perspective, with all their injuries, that's a win they deserved without needing to do anything flashy. They were stronger at the basics, and sometimes that's all you need. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Make a good point, stand up Bath. Right, to Kingsholm, where Gloucester played Exeter on Friday night. Nice bit of mauling to start us off, guys. Quarter of an hour into the game on Friday night. Gloucester's first try. Jack Singleton, his name will go down on the score sheet, but really well worked try. That technically excellent. They're realising that's a weapon. It's obviously very well coached, and it's something they like to use. They did attack nicely a few times, Gloucester. Not enough, actually. This pullback from Billy Twelvetrees at the line's a beauty. It stitches up Harvey Skinner a treat. There's nothing he could do. In the end, Meeing ends up getting barreled into touch. Exeter Chiefs Hendrickson does just enough. He played well, by the way, Friday night. Powerful unit. Again, the pullback from Twelvetrees is a good one. And Carreras, who was probably Gloucester's best player, or Freddie Clark might have something to say about that. Bust through the middle. Lewis Rees-Zammit, how well does Harvey Skinner do to catch him? I know he must have had the angle or a head start, and Lewis Rees-Zammit had to check himself to take the pass and all that, but still, stopping him in the corner is no mean feat. Lonsdale steaming through, looks promising, but Carreras is there again with a strong hit. How about that on a big second row? Carreras is a good player with the ball. He's a very good player without it. Then it all started getting a little bit Exeter Chiefy. Will Whitty going over. Now look, Exeter Chiefs have not had an excellent start to the season. They don't look anything like their best, but they are finding ways to grind out wins here or there, and that will stand them in good stead. Right, socials for the final game of the weekend. After last week, when Chiefs looked unsettled, it was great, said Jim Lawrence, to see them more like themselves. Gloucester, to their credit, pushed them all the way, but the lads stuck to their task and got a hard-fought win and a good team effort, so well done all. Lots and lots of emojis after that. Rugby balls, clappy hands, that, biceps, fire, boxing glove, lightning, peace signs, beers, everything. Very, very excited, very, very happy tweeter was Jim. Tarquin the Otter said this: that was more Gloucester losing rather than Exeter winning. Lewis Rees-Zammit should have had 2 tries if the decision making and passes were better. Absolutely blew it. I am inclined to agree actually with you, Tarquin the Otter. I think that Lewis Rees-Zammit's error at the end gave Exeter the in to score the winning try. But on the clip we just showed you, Lewis Rees-Zammit getting caught in the corner after the Carreras pass. It's a really hard pass for a winger to make, you know, not a fly half or a scrum half. Generally the best passers in the team. And just that little check that Lewis Rees-Zammit has to make gives Harvey Skinner the advantage in terms of tracking him into that corner. So I agree with you. I think if he hadn't had to check, there's every chance he scores, every chance the game's different and all that, but it didn't go Gloucester's way, and I do feel like they blew it. As much as Exeter will claim they kind of ground out the win, they did, but they were given an in the last couple of minutes. Right, last week we asked you to give us your opinions on who you think from the Gallagher Premiership could give it a decent crack in the NFL. Cam Sandel said, a fully fit Jake Pelledri would tear up the American scene, but Gloucester need him more. That's such a good shout, Cam. Hadn't thought of that. He's a bona fide, legitimate freak in contact, so that would be great to watch, but I don't want him to go. I want him to stay. Eyes River said, Daly is definitely a world-class NFL kicker. No, he's not definitely a world-class NFL kicker. You've never seen him do it because he's never done it. You think he might be, and I think you might be right, but he hasn't done it. So let's try and be correct, shall we? But I think quarterbacks have already infiltrated rugby, seeing how many forward passes are being allowed. Look, you're turning into an old grump, okay? You're that old grumpy person at the end of the bar. You'll be talking about crooked feeds into the scrum next, okay? Just get over it and allow the odd one, all right? Rudolph Ras says the entire Fijian team for the NFL. Michael Andrew follows up by saying that would be so much fun. They've got the size, they've got the skills. Trying to defend against them would be a nightmare for NFL defensive coaches. I think that is such a good point. I watch a bit of NFL. I don't watch many whole games. I haven't been to any live games in the UK at least, but I do watch the odd highlights package. And I sometimes wonder why there aren't more South Sea Islanders playing in the NFL. I think the NFL might have missed a trick there and they should send a few scouts on a few missions to the South Sea Islands, to Fiji, Tonga, Samoa. But mind you, we want to keep them all for our game, don't we? Because they kind of add so much. So let's hope no one spots it. Robs1471 said, flats in tights. on YouTube. He'll be on OnlyFans next. Niche market, that one. Yeah, look, Rob, there's a niche for everybody. Your niche might be small, my niche might be small, but a niche is a niche, right? That's all for this week, guys. Remember to head over to the Premiership Rugby website, all the full games, all the highlights packages on there. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification reminder bell up there. So when we drop some content or basically release a new video, you get told about it. See you next week.